Hold on for a second. What's up, YouTube family? I would like you guys to make sure you like and subscribe to our video. It would help us get into the algorithms so we could be seen and bring more engaging content to you guys. So, like I said, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Appreciate it. And welcome to another edition of the Pick and Downs podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with my guys Zoo and Peebush. How you fellas doing?
Doing well, man. Out in Portland, Oregon, man. Not able to catch a Blazers game this year, unfortunately. But, man, I feel like I've been checking my phone all the past 2 days, just seeing all this NFL news flying by. We got quarterbacks moving, running backs just shuffling all across the league, trade demands, huge contracts. It's going to be an exciting year entering into the draft, man. This has just been a beautiful NFL offseason so far, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, especially the names, dude. A lot of big names, especially in the fantasy football area. When you got 10 running back switch teams, like legitimately 10 running backs that play football, all switching teams and seeing new situations, it's going to be real exciting. Like the NFL, they dominate the regular season, the playoffs, but I'm not going to lie, this offseason, they kind of dominated the offseason right now. Like this is pretty impressive what NFL's doing when they're not even playing in all the attention right now with all the moves right now. I want to say the biggest move hasn't happened yet. Hasn't happened. I'm patiently waiting. I'm patiently waiting to see where Mr. Fields goes.
Speaking of the NFL calendar, they are getting to a point where the NBA, and I always say this from a vantage point of just a regular fan, not like people who are really into sports. They're getting to a point where we're only going to really care about the very beginning of the NBA season, that little week, the in-season tournament, and then the playoffs, because the NBA has had some pretty decent storylines with players and injuries, but it's like no one really cares because to Zoo's point about the NBA or the NFL just coming through with updates. Like, I mean, I guess Schefter's their Woj. Like,
yeah,
all this stuff is going crazy. So, man, salute to Roger Goodell. This is why they're king. They are slowly but surely taking every part of the calendar. And NBA, they got to shape up and figure it out. So, speaking of the NFL and the free agency, it's been going crazy. Kind of want to ask the guys what was their biggest takeaway, whether it's a move from a team or a player or a position group. And P-Bush, I'm gonna start with you.
Man, I got to go with the position that I think a lot of people, including myself, thought was doomed in free agency, man, and that was the running back position. I mean, you're talking about setting a precedence. My Bears, they set the precedence, man.
Jesus.
I thought they had a pretty good deal with DeAndre Swift.
I don't know. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, but I mean, Tony Pollard getting the same one, too, to go to Tennessee. We got Josh Jacobs getting a 4-year deal in the Packers. I thought the Bears were going to go for him. Cutting Aaron Jones. Who else someone else got cut as well. Well, I mean, obviously we know Derrick Henry.
Mixon, and then he got traded.
He got Mixon getting traded. Eckler signing with the Commanders. Kind of taking over. He's going to kind of transition into an Antonio Gibson type role and allow Brian Robinson Jr. to kind of be the 3-down guy. Saquon Barkley going to a rival. No more tush push Zoo, as you would like to mention yesterday, man. So this was just a position group that I didn't think was going to have this much movement. I mean, I thought there were definitely going to be, Derrick Henry getting a contract, Austin Eckler as well. But a lot of these trades, Joe Mixon getting moved on to a stud team down there in the AFC South, man, and the Texans. This is going to be fun to watch. But overall, I think this signals the future of running backs. I think teams aren't going to pay top dollar for these guys, and they're not going to give them super long contracts, but that 2 to 3 max 4-year deals for those older running backs. You got to lower the age for what you consider old in that position group, because it is the most decimated group in football. But yeah, man, I was just excited. I'm glad my Bears got a little bit involved. I thought they could have done a bit more, but I was just pleasantly surprised at all this movement. Fantasy drafting, to your point earlier, Zoo, is going to be very interesting with a lot of this move this year. So this running back group, man, we'll see how it shapes up heading into next season.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm like, is this the CMC effect? Is that the CMC effect? They see the 49ers, a team that has always been really good, at a superstar running back, and pretty much he was their best offensive weapon, and be like, wow, having a true defining running back that give you a rusher and a pass catcher and just an explosive tool that sets your offense apart. And maybe like, we'll pay for a Saquon for a couple of years, more on a shorter, as you mentioned, shorter term deal. So I just mentioned this today, like a Derrick Henry guy.
Yep.
Pretty good money for a guy that's in running back terms very old, very, very old. The guy's
30.
already 30 years old. Yeah, exactly. The Baltimore Ravens gave him pretty good guarantee. Like his first year, pretty good guaranteed money for a guy in his 30s. Yep. Like you didn't see guys like that, especially at that age, getting money like that. So I feel like this might be a little CMC effect, a little rebirth of the running back position, even though the contracts aren't too long. But for me, man, the biggest move that I saw was Kirk Cousins, man. When I saw Kirk Cousins, like there were little rumors already, like Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins, like family, like looking at houses down there. So there were a lot of rumors out there. Exactly. They're like, oh, those rumors are dead on because Kirk Cousins, like this is that's crazy to say, the premier name. Like everybody wanted Kirk Cousins. Yeah. Like the constellation. You got the Steelers getting their guy and Russell Wilson. Like those are the big moves this year in the offseason. But Kirk Cousins, a guy off a torn Achilles, and he got a bag, man. $100 million guaranteed, $170+ million if he hits all his freaking his contract details, man. If he doesn't get waived, like this dude, his agent, the way he's played himself from being a guy in the playoffs, this guy's won one playoff game. He's won one playoff game, and this guy is going to probably hit career winnings of probably over $300 million. That is incredible what this guy has done from a guy who's a back quarterback to a guy. I always said he's a nice little average, nice quarterback. He's a little top 12 to 15 type quarterback, but the money he's making ain't top 12 to 15, man. This guy's making some incredible money. And Kirk Cousins, and I don't know, Atlanta people are hyped. A revitalization of that offense with a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, maybe a resurgence in Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. I know as a fantasy football
Darnell Mooney.
Darnell Mooney.
They got Darnell Mooney? Is that dude?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, wow. Darnell Mooney. Yeah, they are lock and loading it for Raheem. This Raheem Morris guy, like, they're like, yo, I need a quarterback. Like, we heard in the offseason before, he's like, you look at the guys, he's like, what are we missing? What are we missing? He's straight to say, yeah, our quarterback play, as everyone has seen with anyone with IC, Desmond Ridder wasn't the dude. That guy was one of the worst players I've seen in my entire life. And he held back elite skilled position guys. Because I think Drake London, this guy's an alpha. This is a guy that might have a career season, might get 1,200, 1,300 yards and double-digit touchdowns based on his talent. I call him baby Mike Evans. Like, this guy might be fully unleashed with a guy in Kirk Cousins who produced some fantasy studs, a.k.a. Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs. Like, this guy force feeds his dudes, and he also used the tight end position too. Like
Jordan Addison going early.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jordan Addison, rookie wide receiver. So Kirk Cousins has a very good impact on wide receivers and their numbers and their yardage. So it'll be a breath of fresh air for a real quarterback. Like, obviously the Achilles, and it seems like I'm the only guy that's worried about the Achilles because no one cares. Like I feel like Achilles, whatever. Kirk doesn't move. He's a statue quarterback. He relies on his arm, which is true. But I'm like an Achilles, man. This ain't like ACL. Like ACL, I feel like people get their ACL torn and they just come back stronger now. Like ACL injury has definitely gone ain't the death nail on a career compared to. I feel like an Achilles injury is still. That's like okay, that can still impact a guy's future, but I guess no one really cares now. Like maybe medicine's that good, and Kirk Cousins is just a fast recoverer, and so no one seems to care. But we'll give him $100 million guaranteed. We'll give this guy the key to the franchise with our young team who's ready to win now. Like they want results immediately. Like if they don't make the playoffs, that's a disappointment.
They need to win. They'll win that division.
Yeah, exactly. They got to win the division. Like now that they got a guy in Baker Mayfield who also got the bag. So shout out to Baker Mayfield. He got $100 million. So shout out to Baker Mayfield from being a backup to getting $100 million. Shout out to him. So they'll be duking out in a relatively weak division. But if I'm giving a guy $100 million, I want to make the playoffs, and I want to see those weapons, and I want to see that. And this is a Sean McVay coaching tree down there too. So they have a lot to prove right now. A lot of young guys, and probably Captain Kirk. There's the most established guy right now based on his veteran experience. So I'm really, really excited.
And their defense is solid.
They were good last year. They were really, really good last year. Yeah, last year,
had a really good team.
I think we all said it. They were just missing a quarterback.
And they do need to shore up their offensive line, and they'll use the draft.
Oh, they'll have to. They'll have to. Kirk's a statue, and post Achilles injury, you don't want this guy taking too many hits. So that'll probably be a focus on them. But their offensive line last year was pretty solid too. So I think PFF, they were top 10 on their grading level on their O linemen. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. Like that division, really weak. They went for it, trying to make the division, trying to make a playoff run. So I'm excited for them to get that deal done, and hopefully that spurs some other quarterbacks of getting dealt. So I'm real happy. That's the first domino. The first domino.
I'm not going to dive into it. I know we want to keep this one a little short, but I don't think free agency ending is going to do it. I think it's going to be Caleb's physical. I think they're just waiting on his physical because he's only sending it to teams that are like.
Oh,
Poles just wants to see that, and then they're just keeping that chip. They could also keep him.
I don't hate on that. Like maybe you start Justin Fields. And maybe put Caleb on the bench for like a couple of games. You never know.
Games, and then when a quarterback inevitably gets injured, Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles, then you trade Fields because someone will be desperate, just like the Vikings were getting Josh Dobbs last year.
Yeah, because I don't know if you're the picks. The picks are kind of sad that we're hearing like a 4th round pick for Justin Fields, a 5th round pick.
Yep.
That's a weak package.
I was saying I didn't think he was going to get a 1st round.
Wait till not a first.
Games.
I said
I thought he'd get a 2nd though.
If they can't at least get a top 5 3rd round pick, first 5 picks of the 3rd round, plus maybe just a throwaway player or something, you hold on.
What did Trey Lance go for?
4th rounder, and he's way better
than that. Yeah,
he's way better.
He has to get better than that.
Yep.
If you're saying 5th round, I'm hanging up the phone and I'm keeping him. And to me, that's the best of both worlds because we all know and kind of assume Caleb's going to be number 1. But if those guys go into camp and Justin comes out victorious, that means the Bears are probably going to the playoffs because that means Justin is turned up because Caleb Williams is not going to make it easy on them.
No.
But I want you guys to hear me out on this because a lot of the media was going insane. They were going crazy with Saquon. Like, Saquon's going to the Eagles. And I get it. Like, that is, on the surface, it looks kind of crazy. But I think the Giants actually had a pretty good day. Like, not day, but days with free agency. Brian Burns was rumored to be going around L.A. for 2 1st-round picks. And at the time, Carolina was just like, whatever, we're going to keep him because, most people thought they were going to re-sign him. But they didn't because I could just say the Carolina Panthers are a dumpster fire. They're just they're not they're a dumpster fire that's so bad that I don't even know. Like most people just get a fire extinguisher. But no, you got to get like the National Guard, whatever you can get, like reinforcements to put this fire out because they're just doing stuff that doesn't. I mean, shout out to Deontay Johnson, that was a pretty good move, but it just looks crazy with Carolina. Yeah. So for me, looking at the Giants only gave up a 2nd and a 5th, and I think the 5th is next year. The 2nd round pick that they gave up, I guess it was theirs, but they have Seattle's 2nd round pick. So I was looking at it and I was just like, Brian Burns to me is one of the more underrated pass rushers. I think because he was in Carolina, people didn't really talk about him a lot. But I think now him being in New York with the franchise, respect to the Jets, but they are the franchise in New York. People are going to really see his stardom. You got Kayvon Thibodeau on the other side, who's a budding star. Dexter Lawrence, for my money, is probably one of the best D tackles in the NFL. So that line is solid. You got a really solid defensive line.
Back to the Eli days.
Yeah, like you got the lines of scrimmage are starting to look better. Now, they got one guy, I think, on left or right tackle who's kind of good, but they need to shore up their tackles. But I was thinking to myself, like, they're at 6, I think, 5 or 6. I'm interested to see what they do because if a lot of people were kind of mocking them with like, let's get a pass rusher just because it's, something that they need, obviously, to Kayvon Thibodeau, because you can never have enough. Because in that division, going against Hurts, potentially Jaden Daniels, Dak Prescott is not the fleetest of foot, but he can run around. You got to have guys that can get to the quarterback. So they shored that up with Brian Burns, only giving up the compensation they did. So I'm thinking to myself, like, well, maybe if the rumors are true, they're really just trying to keep Daniel Jones. And they got Drew Lock. I guess he's a backup, whatever. And he got a 1-year deal. So I'm pretty sure he's just going to be there to be, as Zoo would say, what Nathaniel Hackett like a drinking, but as somebody who Daniel Jones gets along with. I do think that they have a couple ways they can go. Like, you could just stay in that spot, draft a tackle, maybe get another receiver and be like, okay, we're fine there. But I think they could trade back with, say, a team like Denver, who's trying to get up in that top 5 because they need a quarterback. They could maybe get like that pick swap and maybe get like an early second round pick. And then you're looking at a situation where just, Brian Thomas is starting to become the consensus 4th receiver. I think Denver is in the 12, 14 range, whatever. You could pick him up. And then if you get another second round pick, I know everybody was, dying about Saquon. But to me, his situation is very similar to DeAndre Swift. When DeAndre was in Detroit that year before, he was kind of like, all right, like I had him on fantasy. He didn't show up as much as I wanted him to. But then he had a rebirth in Philadelphia. And I feel like Saquon could have the same thing. Now, it's kind of hard to bet on a lot of these running backs because sometimes it's easy to get off them early. And when they go to their next destination, it normally doesn't work out. Like Dalvin Cook was a kind of a prime example that everybody went crazy when he went to the Jets. And it was just like, no, he's washed. It's just over. It's just over with. It's
the beast.
And running back more than any other position is very stark. Like, it's not like you see it coming. It's like, no, it's like, boom, it's here. Like, they're not good anymore.
Very
so
true.
I think Saquon, not saying he's in that realm, but like he could go to Philadelphia, rehab project, get his value back up, and maybe be beneficial for them. Maybe he just needs to change of scenery. So I think with the Giants, you could maybe do that. Get a Brian Thomas Jr. Like I said, if you get an early second round pick, my favorite back in the draft right now is Trey Benson from Florida State.
Yep.
I'm biased because I watch a lot of Florida State, but I mean he's 6 foot, 216 pounds, ran a 4.39. Like I like the skill set. I just like it a lot. Very powerful back. Started 2 years and he's never fumbled, at least at Florida State. The 2 years he was there. So, I think he would be a nice back for the type of team that the Giants are trying to do. But in my opinion, I think they should trade back maybe into like the later teens or in the later rounds of the first round and just pick up Michael Penix because you're delaying the inevitable. Like, I don't think as much as talent you can put around Daniel Jones, I don't think it's going to get to a point where you got so much talent where he's going to lift you in that division to a playoff spot. I just don't see it. So to me, I would rather just trade back with Michael Penix to get Michael Penix. Like, see, you might, with quarterbacks is weird because even though there's a lot of them that's kind of like predicted in the first round, they start going fast. So you might just have to, if you trade with Denver, just stay there and maybe just draft Michael Penix because, I mean, there's a lot of people that's probably going to try to trade up and get him because they always say they go later and they end up going earlier because they're quarterback. But I would go get Michael Penix. Like I said, you can get a Trey Benson at running back to replace him because you can replace running back pretty easy in this league. I mean, look at the Chiefs.
And they signed Singletary. They signed Devin Singletary.
He's a nice option. He's a nice
year last year.
Option with or he was with the Texans last year, so that was a pretty good option. But I think the Giants, how they're moving and maneuvering, if I was a GM, that's what I would do. Now they're probably going to stay at 6 and draft a receiver and try to give Daniel Jones all the help he can get. But I would trade back, and I like that they were able to not have to focus on pass rushers at that position. Get it for a second and a fifth. They already have a second, so they know maybe they want to trade back into the first round with their second and whatever draft capital they have. I like how they're maneuvering. I would say this move is pending, but if they actually took my advice and traded back and got Michael Penix, I'm very excited of where they're going.
He's the most NFL ready. I think he's the most NFL ready quarterback.
Yeah, and two, he's got the arm strength. He's slender, like a lot of these guys, and he's not mobile, and he's had the injury history. But it's like, if you're taking a chance, I'd rather take a chance because you're not. I don't think they're going to be able to get up. Yeah, they're not going to be. Yeah,
buyer's remorse, man. Buyer's remorse with that contract.
That is from what I've been reading and watching. A lot of that contract is because of his relationship with the Mannings and the owner.
Yep.
Which dictated that contract. I don't think it had anything to do with his play. Which is
he was Eli's drinking buddy.
Yeah, they made the playoffs and let's reward him, but man, franchise him a year, man. He ain't proven.
Yeah, so I don't get why they didn't do that.
I don't get it. They could have easily franchised him. That's what the franchise tag was for.
And this is why the Giants have been who they are. This is why they've been who they are. They have not been. I mean, they had a good year last year, but they have not been a beacon of success. It's because with a lot of this stuff, somebody, and this is not a tangent, but somebody had said on the podcast I was listening to, they were like, fans would never want to hear this, but a majority of owners, GMs, player personnel, people, whoever, they're just happy to cash their checks and make sure the team is not like dysfunctional.
Yep.
Fans don't want to hear that, but it's like when you see stuff like with Daniel Jones and other situations around the league, it's not a lot of people who are gun ho and win. Like every fan thinks their team is going to win, is trying to win the Super Bowl. When in reality, it's only a few franchises that are actually trying to do it. And then, unfortunately, it's the teams that have the best quarterback. So if you got a quarterback that's getting to the playoffs, then maybe those teams are doing it. But like everybody else is just trying to, they're cashing their check in there.
They're running a business.
Staying like, yeah, they're running up. Yeah, they're doing a job. They're doing a job. Everybody says it's a dream job, but some of these guys are just talented at their job, and they may not be in love with football and winning. Like, who cares? Maybe the players are, but I don't know. So the Giants, like I said, a lot of people were beating them up. I get it. Saquon going to a rival, but I mean, it's just that's the business. And like you said, the Giants weren't trying to pay Saquon, so I get it. It. But
yeah, no contract offer. That's a rumor. No, I just didn't give him an offer. I
just think all this is. It stings because it's the Eagles, and I get it if you're a Giants fan, but it's just like his running back. It's not like if they had a star QB and then he signed with the Eagles or something. Like, now that would be like, what are we doing here? But that's running back, so they'll be fine. They can always draft one. But, speaking of impact players and guys who looking for a contract, T. Higgins, which we all kind of assumed was going to be a decision for the Bengals. And, respect to T. Higgins, but Jamar is the guy there, at least in their eyes. And Joe Burrow is the quarterback, and that LSU connection. And, just his connection with Jamar is pretty special. So I think we all kind of assumed that was going to be where the money goes to when Jamar's contract is up. So now T. Higgins is requesting a trade, and there's some teams that are out there looking for receiver ones or receiver 1A, whatever you want to call it, 1B, whatever. They're looking for a elite receiver. And I wanted to ask the guys, who are some of those teams who would benefit greatly from getting T. Higgins? And Zoo, I'm going to go ahead and throw it to you first.
I'm putting an asterisk on here when you say
I knew he was going to do that.
Receiver. Okay, he's a nice, big-looking receiver, man. But if we look at the receiver pool in the NFL, I guess there's a lot of great receivers then. I'm a little picky when I say you're a great receiver. I'm going to say that's like a top 15. That's in my category as great. And he's nowhere near there. There's so many great receivers coming in and out of, especially in the draft right now, especially recently with the young prospects coming out. And this year, they're saying this year in the top 10, we might have another 3 potential stud wide receiver one. So I would say the receiver depth just keeps coming deeper and deeper. And I feel like whoever pays T. Higgins the bag, because that's what's going to be like, okay, do you want him long-term? He's on his franchise tag right now. You train him, you're extending him. Like, that's what you're going to try to do right now. So I'm like, okay, you got to be careful now. I don't want people to overpay for wide receivers right now, because I feel like the wide receiver market is at that point where it's getting a little too crazy. Maybe the wide receiver bubble market. Like, you never know. Like when you got too many good something, okay, maybe get another wide receiver too. Like, maybe get a Gabe Davis and get him for cheap. Like, that's what the Jags. They're like, I'm not the biggest Gabe Davis fan, but like as a wide receiver too, like, that's all right. Or wide receiver 3. Like, I don't know how he's gonna finish, but for me personally, I like get T. Higgins, man. Like, T. Higgins wants to be the alpha number 1 receiver, huh? Like, I don't know, Pat. Like, I know you love him. Yeah, I know you're probably like, oh, the Bears or something. I don't know if that's what you're going through. You're like, I want T. Higgins and DJ Moore. DJ Moore's our alpha. Okay, I agree with that. DJ Moore had a hellacious season last year. So I think DJ Moore is technically better. I think he's a better wide receiver than T. Higgins.
They play very different. They're very different.
Yeah. One's like a bigger guy, one's a smaller guy. So it's like a very,
one's
very
a running back that's like a really good receiver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I'm looking at the teams that need a receiver. Like, I'm gonna knock one out. I'm like, I love Kansas City. I love putting money on them. They ain't getting T. Higgins, man.
Patrick restructured his.
That's what I'm like. Oh, what are they cooking up? But I feel like in my head, trying to cook some money for Snead. Snead, try to keep Snead.
Probably so, yeah.
Right? In my mind,
and the Bengals would never make that trade. They would never.
Yeah, especially like they're I don't know if they're a rival, but they don't like each other, not even a little. So imagine giving offensive weapons to Patrick Mahomes. So that did pop in my head, but nah, like that ain't gonna happen, man. That ain't gonna happen. But then you look at some bad teams that might do it. Like I feel like T. Higgins is the stereotypical a bad team gives him the bag because they need a wide receiver one because they're desperate enough. That's what this is a guy that goes to a bad team and then he just becomes irrelevant. So another team that popped in my head are the Carolina Panthers.
Oh,
like that
God.
I'm just like,
this
is just a classic.
Bryce needs one.
Yuck.
What?
Bryce needs a guy.
I know that is true. Like you want to give your young quarterbacks as much weapons as possible so you could decide if he's any good. Because based on his weapons last year, Bryce Young didn't look that good, but Bryce Young didn't have much to work with, man. If he had a DJ Moore to work with, that's actually some actual weapon to work with. And like T. Higgins down there, maybe it could be a little something like a dynamic duo, like what Mike Evans did for Baker Mayfield as that alpha number one target. And look how that turned out. Yeah. Baker Mayfield revives his career because the year before when he was on the Carolina Panthers, he was awful. He was awful. So you give this guy Mike Evans and you have a coaching system that benefits him, and then he gets he turns out to be $100 million quarterback. So you never know. So that for me is like his ideal situation when you give a young quarterback a big weapon. Like a young quarterback that doesn't need to be that accurate, right? You got a big weapon. He go for the jump balls. That's what I like about these taller wide receivers, the Drake Londons, like this type of prototype that you don't have to be. You just throw a jump ball out there for him. So for me, T. Higgins to a team like the Carolina Panthers, I feel like it's just one of those things that I ain't gonna be touching them in fantasy football, but maybe help up a young quarterback. So
and they have the money, and they got the money.
Yeah, they have the money too. But that is the type of team I'm looking at. Bad team, miss playoffs, young quarterback, give them a weapon, see how they're gonna do. So that's the type of team I'm looking at.
I'm going to approach this a little differently. I don't think they're going to trade him. I don't think they're going to honor his request. They're going to make him play his franchise tag, and then they're just going to let him walk.
Which is unfortunate.
Let him walk?
Well, what do you know? I mean, unless they trade him mid-season. I mean, he's coming off franchise tag. They're not going to pay him. They don't have the money. They want to pay Chase, to your point earlier, Sean. But, when I'm looking at if they were to trade, I'm going to go back to a team that Sean was just talking about. Give him to the Giants because they have no wide receiver. Darren Waller is their best outside threat, and he's always hurt. He can't stay healthy. Isaiah Hodgins, he showed some nice little flashes. Jalen Hyatt has had a lot of hype around him being a dynasty guy in the couple years. But look, to Sean's point earlier, even if they stick with Daniel Jones, if you give Daniel Jones T. Higgins, that'll make his life a little bit easier. Is he going to become a top 10 quarterback? No. But it will help his case, and it'll help that offense. And let's be honest, with their defensive front and the way their defense is shaping up, they might not have to score that many points to stay in a lot of games if they're getting that much pressure on the quarterback. So I'm looking at a team like that. The other thing to keep in mind is, just in general, what team is going to be – they're looking for a second-rounder, right? The Bengals, if they are going to trade him, they're not going to trade him unless they get a second-rounder. Well, to all of our points earlier, this draft is so deep at wide receiver that you can get a solid wide receiver too. Maybe it'll take a year of development, but eventually on a rookie contract in the second round. And you'd have cheaper, you wouldn't have to extend Higgins. You'd have a younger guy, right, to pair up with a quarterback potentially coming in at the same time. If the Giants were to take a quarterback, maybe trade up for Jaden Daniels, or they stick with Daniel Jones. So I'm thinking, is any team willing to give up a second rounder for T. Higgins? And I just don't see it happening. Except to your point, Zoo, a desolate, desperate franchise like the Carolina Panthers might do it because they just have money to throw around. But look, the Giants still have $41 million in cap space for next year. They could pay T. Higgins if they wanted to, but I just don't know if they'd be willing to. And Zoo, to your point about the Panthers, you got to remember their first pick in the draft is the first pick of the second round. So they're going to have to trade their first and only pick in the draft, the 33rd pick, where you can get a damn good player, right? Probably an outside threat at wide receiver. There's a ton of names. I'd say the top 13 to 15 wide receivers could end up being wide receiver 2s or higher in the NFL. There's a lot of talent coming into this draft. So Now on the Giants side, they have 3 picks between 39 and 70. So they would have a pick to just throw away and sure, we'll take T. Higgins, but are they willing to pay him? So I think it kind of depends on what they want to do with the draft. I know they kind of got to pull the trigger on a trade sooner rather than later. I just don't think someone's going to come to the Bengals with a beautiful offer and the Bengals are just going to automatically take it. So I do think the Giants would be a good fit. They're in a bit more of a win now area for all the bad teams. You mentioned the Bears. I just don't think he'd mesh well. And just with the quarterback kind of changing of guard, or maybe, there's just not going to be enough consistency, and he'd have to share the ball with DJ Moore. So I just don't really see that fit, even though I'd love to boost up any talent you can get on my team. But I just think a lower team, like even the Titans are another name I've seen being thrown around because he'd have 1 year with D-Hop, and then he could take the wide receiver 1 role if he was to prove it. So they're also just
Burks would be a nice little combo if Treylon Burks could stay healthy. But
yeah, geez, man, he can't. But yeah, so yeah, my consensus, I don't think they're going to trade him. But if there is a team that could pull the trigger and has the money and potential pieces around to make it a difference, it would be the Giants.
Let me ask you this, because the Bears would part of at the bottom, like the third team, I would say he could be traded to. And I know they say they want a second round pick. What if I know you guys got the 9th pick, or is it the 9th or 10th? I can't remember.
9th.
What if it's like, hey, the Bengals is like, we'll give you a defensive star and T. Higgins for that 9th pick?
No.
Let me ask you this: if you go,
I'll take Odunze and develop.
Yeah, Odunze is like the mock there, but this is one thing that I'm thinking about, and the reason why I added a star player is because that would help with you guys, like in terms of defensive. Like you get another guy, like maybe it's a Russian. I don't know who they got, but I'm just saying a defensive star from the Bengals, like one of their best players. The reason why I'm saying this is because I think with Caleb Williams, like, of course, as a rookie quarterback, if he's as good as he is, it's not going to matter who his receivers are because he's just going to make everybody better. But I'm thinking, too, like, I think if you guys were to get T. Higgins and say you got a defensive star and you had DJ Moore and Caleb Williams is, like, good, you guys are going to the playoffs.
No, for sure.
Like, with Roman Odunze, I understand the math of, like, he's a rookie receiver, but we also – and I'm in the agreement. Like, there's 3 receiver ones. But it's still football. And sometimes those 3 guys you said are going to be receiver ones, it may only be the one. And it may take a maturation process. And it's like T. Higgins is more of a proven product. So it's just like that. It's something that's – because with Caleb, I think a rookie receiver, it's kind of – not saying he's Joe Burrow. But like Joe Burrow came in with T. Higgins already being established. It was there. Jamar Chase just took it off the top. And I don't think any of these guys are Jamar Chase, even Marvin Harrison. I think Jamar came in and just – He's did some different type of stuff. Wow. But I think it's like having 2 guys who have played in this league and are really, really effing good. And like you said, you're probably going to take Caleb. Just having those 2, I know T kind of has hinted around being a receiver 1, whatever. But I think, whatever. He could be co-receiver 1s or receiver 2 and DJ's receiver 1. Like, I think it's something interesting to think about. Because then it's like, I would not do it if it's T. Higgins and just the first round pick. No, but like if Cincinnati came, it's like, look, we'll give you T. Higgins, and because you guys I saw you guys like what 60-something million in cap space. Like you guys can make a deal work, and then you got another guy like with a defensive end. Like
I don't know where the Bengals are in the draft, but I would say I would pick swap with them and give me Higgins, and I'll give him some like a 4th rounder.
The Bengals are like 18 or 19. So
yeah, so I'd swap the 9 back to 19, give him a 4th rounder, and then give me T. Higgins as well. So then you'd have the first pick and then like the 20th pick, 19th, 20th pick in the draft. You could still take an edge rusher or something.
Because then you could get greedy, and if Brian Thomas is still there, you could draft him too, and then you'd have 3 freaking monster 6'4". You have 2 6'4" guys that are running 4.4s and 4.3s, and have DJ Moore running around the slot bulldozing. But besides that. One of the teams I thought about with T. Higgins, because to me, I think he's a really, really good receiver. I think, running with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase helps because not as much attention is on you. But I don't think Carolina scares me a little bit because they don't have – they just got Deontay Johnson, who's a really good receiver, so maybe that'll help. But it is kind of scary having T. Higgins in like the alpha where it's like him and nobody else, because I know he was in that role a little bit before Jamar and Joe Burrow got there, but it wasn't like I wouldn't say he was tearing up the league. I think he was good. But
yeah, he was barely hitting
crazy.
1,000 yards. He barely hit 1,000 yards.
So I would rather him be with another guy who's really good. So one of the first things that came into my mind before I thought about the Bears was why don't they go to the Colts? Like Michael Pittman, established number one guy. Anthony Richardson had moments with Michael Pittman. He got injured, whatever. With the jury's still out, but he had a couple months where it's like, oh, he's got a little potential. You put him in that offense. If Jonathan Taylor comes back with just like vengeance and stays healthy, then that could go down as one of the more explosive offenses in the league. Because now you got two guys, 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". Josh Dobbs. Who'd you say?
Josh Downs.
Oh, I thought you said
he was
Downs.
a good rookie last year.
But yeah, Josh Downs, another slot guy. You're just gonna have on that fast track of just guys who can get vertical down the field. Jonathan Taylor, he's okay as a receiving back. It's not a skill set, his major skill set. He's a downhill runner, but you're just gonna have so many options and the threat of Anthony Richardson using his legs. Like that's gonna bring safeties up. I think those two vertical threats could be something lethal. And two, you're playing, like I said, inside of a dome, fast track. You're playing in the AFC South. You're going to need some firepower going up against C.J. Stroud. Trevor Lawrence, like we said last week, is going to be looking for a situation where he's able to stand on the table. Any situation he can get where he's able to stand on the table and say, I'm the dude.
He's got to beat Mac Jones in camp first. Boys, let's be honest.
That's disgusting. Talk about a like what the hell kind of trade is that? To me, if I'm Trevor, I'm so offended that they did that. Like a six, like if they would have got a 4th round pick for him, I'm like, okay, whatever, I get it. You got a 6th round pick? Like, what is? That's so weird. That's so weird, and it gives P. Bush a little bit more credence about his take last week.
They just can't
argue it. Yeah, they can't. You can't be all in with Trevor if you get Mac. Like that's just like a 6th round pick. Yeah. Like what? Just no. Keep it and draft somebody else, like a special teamer. Why are you taking Mac Jones? So I guess they're not as sold on Trevor, but whatever. That's beside the point. I think those two guys would be very, very good for Anthony Richardson and his development because, like I've always said, and everybody knows this, you got to have receivers, you got to have dudes as a young quarterback. It's helped with Joe Burrow. It's helped with many other types of quarterbacks. I mean, C.J. Stroud's a little bit of an outlier because Tank Dell went crazy and Nico kind of had a resurgence. But, for the most part, you need dudes. So I think if I had to place my money on where I think he should go, it should be in Indianapolis because they're going to pay him. He's going to have a quarterback to throw him the ball in. I think. I don't
know. They just paid Pittman big money too. Noise. Like Pittman got some good money. He got $70 million. That's really good money.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, because I don't want him in a situation where he's a true alpha. Like that's why, even though Deontay Johnson is a dude himself, I don't want him where he's like just the number one guy and you got a couple bums this receiver 2 or 3. I just don't want him in a situation like that because I don't think he'll flourish.
So what you're saying, Sean, is that he's not elite. He ain't an alpha. That's what I'm hearing, right?
No. I think. Listen, T. Higgins has. That's the thing. I think he has the skill set to be an alpha. It's hard to be an alpha with Jamar Chase because he is the alpha.
Yeah.
But like Michael Pittman. If you're asking me, would it shock me if he went into that offense and he became the better receiver than Michael Pittman? I would not be shocked by that.
No, I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked. I think Michael Pittman is awesome.
Like, where's Michael Pittman in your receive? Like, is he? I guess he's what 10 to 15.
Yeah, he's in my 15-ish.
Exactly.
20.
So
yeah.
Like if he's not top 10, then
in the same tier.
Same tier.
Pittman's not as much a down the field threat. They threw down the field more to Alec Pierce last year than they did Michael Pittman. He was more of the slant guy, quick out routes.
You only call him the Amon-Ra type guy.
Yeah. T. Higgins is that jump ball, like to your point, the Mike Evanses, the Drake Londons. That's T. Higgins' game, and you need both. You need both on if you want to.
Never in this NFL, you could never not have enough receivers. Like to me, I would if you like I said, if I was, I'm pretty sure like Cincinnati. I don't think they're going to trade T. Higgins because I don't know if they're going to get the compensation they want. But it's like if they were, they're going to draft another receiver because it's just you're not going to just have Jamar Chase and a bunch of Tyler Boyds, and you're not going to do that to Joe Burrow. You're going to get some other dudes in there, which I saw an interesting mock where, to your point, if they do keep T. Higgins, like I think at 18, because Bowers is kind of sliding a little bit because of just like need and set because it's tight end. Like even though he's really good, it's like tight end is just not as important as offensive tackle and quarterback and receiver. Yeah. So it's like if he got into that Cincinnati Bengals offense, my God. Ugh. Like, it's so many possibilities with the pass catchers, with a lot of the teams that have elite quarterbacks of like where they could go. So, that's just kind of some of our thoughts with the NFL. Like I said, we do know it's NBA season, but the NFL, man, they are taking the calendar and, they're doing this free agency thing. And next thing you know, it's going to be the draft. And it's just going to be a lot of scenarios and storylines that we're going to be looking at. So make sure you guys are tuned in to Picking Downs podcast, Tyson Talks on Instagram, Quantro Knows on YouTube. Make sure you guys give us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. And for me, Zoo, and P. Bush, we are out.